Lovers, here we go. We are going to be, it's me, it's Dave Plouffe. Plouffe is French, of course. And we got Dr. Matthew Jarvis, who we're going to talk horror films, amongst other things. So here we go, intro.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Oh, it's always getting crazier out there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Late Horror Show. I am Dino, as always. And, of course, that is Dave Plouffe. And Dr. Matthew Jarvis down below. We will be talking horror, Giallo, all kinds of things tonight. So we will have some fun. Let me say hi to Black Roses, Sears James, Donovan Belair, Connie Clary, WWM, and anybody else who pops in here. But, yes, we are going to talk Giallo for sure. Touch on the House of the Devil. I do want to touch on that because you did a kind of a piece on that or something like that. We'll talk about it. And Dave's got a whole mess of other questions too, so we're going to have fun. First of all, I'll say hi to Matthew Jarvis, and then I'll let Dave go with the first question. How's it going, Matthew?
It's good.
Yeah? Yeah, he's got kind of a Hammer theme going on in the background there. Sun's kind of going down, so the trees are getting darker and darker and darker. But I love the feel and the look. Horror Junkie for Life, what's going on? Kathy, where the heck have you been, Kathy? I hope everything is okay. Sweet Indigo, now they're flowing in. Okay, Dave, take it away.
Well, first of all, too, if you hear thunder, it is from Matt's home in Georgia. I do want to give a little introduction to Matt Jarvis.
Yes.
Matt Jarvis, as you can see on the screen, is a doctor, a PhD, earned his PhD from UC San Diego. He's currently faculty at the Columbus State University. He is also taught at Nebraska Wesleyan, Georgia College, University of Florida, and Jacksonville State University. He's been a keynote speaker of the Alabama Film Symposium, curator of one of my favorite gallery exhibits called Posters That Go Bump in the Night. He is host of Spooky Evenings. The list can go on and on. However, I'm going to stop at the point where I mentioned that he has been my friend for nearly 20 years. It's amazing to think it's been that long, but it has been. We have gone to graduate school together. In California for our master's degree is where I met Matt and found out about his love of horror, which we all do. And so there is a lot of horror to talk about tonight. But one of the things I am most jealous about is his meeting with Adrienne Barbeau, who surprisingly, there was no one at her table. Is that true, Matt?
What?
I met her. So I was at Horror Hound 21, I think, 2021. Yeah, I'm going to go with 21. Time is a mystery to me right now. It might have been 22. Might have been 22. And she was there. They were doing like a Halloween 3 kind of reunion because Tom Atkins was there, Tommy Lee Wallace was there, Nick Warlock was there, and Adrienne Barbeau was. She wasn't in Halloween 3. I am. Yeah,
It's all
mixing
good.
up the.
She was there.
Yeah, she was there. Well, because then I was thinking about the fog. But anyway, she was there because she was next to Tom Atkins' table. And Sunday morning, I went with my fog poster, which is why I was in the two of them. And nobody was there, and so nobody being there, I monopolized her time as much as possible, and got her to write the entire end monologue from the fog on my 27 by 40 poster, which it's great. I mean, because the fog is probably my favorite horror movie. And so the chance to get to meet her and get her to write that out, her being very gracious about it, was fantastic. And I hope not Poltergeist. But yeah, and so a friend of mine who also lives in Georgia, he's a big Batman fan. So I acquired for him a Catwoman still from the animated series because she voiced Catwoman. And I said, could you do me a huge favor again? And she said, sure. And I said, would you mind kissing the photograph? Because touch. Because she signed it, gone to find a scratching post. And she kissed it. Now, what I did not realize at the time was that contemporary lipstick, unlike starlets of yore, doesn't dry ever. So I had to run. I was in Cincinnati. I had to go to Michael's and get basically stuff you would seal chalk with on a chalk drawing and spray it in the Michael's parking lot to make sure that this kiss imprint of Adrienne Barbeau's did not smear.
Yeah, especially in the heat, because it's like a waxy kind of, there's something like that in there that it can melt and drip down. So, which might look cool, but you don't want to ruin it. I get it.
Super gracious though. Very, very nice. And
that's awesome.
Very tiny. You could fold her up and put her in your pocket.
She is a small woman. Yeah. That's an awesome story. I do have to ask you though, because it's always interesting to me why a movie is somebody's favorite movie of all time. And you said The Fog is?
The Fog is my favorite horror movie. For a long time, it was The Exorcist.
Okay. And all of a sudden, now it's The Fog. Maybe because of Adrienne Barbeau. Give me the reasons behind why The Fog is your favorite movie of all time.
Well, it's not my favorite movie of all time. That would be Mulholland.
A horror movie. Sorry.
I think it's got a great cast, obviously. You've got both Jamie Lee Curtis and her mother, Janet Leigh, in it. You got Hal Holbrook in it. I think David and I were talking about this the other night. I think it's a perfect ghost story, which you don't find too many of. You read a lot of good ghost stories, but you don't see a lot of good ghost story movies per se, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's solid all the way through. There's not any moment of it that doesn't have continuity that works, and I find that very rare, actually, in horror. Now, I will say I think The Exorcist is better acted.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Only saw The Fog maybe about a year and a half ago for the very first time, and fell in love with it. Yeah. And the church is by me, that I can go and hang out outside, which is wonderful. I love how the weather is a character, very much like it is behind you right now with a few lightning flashes.
Yeah, that's great.
It's very similar to me in terms of like Psycho, how the weather plays throughout. And I agree with you. It is just a wonderful ghost story.
And you don't get, there's not an over dependence upon the antagonist of The Fog. You see the ghosts of the leper colony in the church, and that's pretty much it. You get like glimpses of them here and there, usually a flash of light or something, like when they get the meteorologist or the poor old lady who's watching the kid. You get these moments with them, but it's not an over dependence upon it, which is interesting coming off of, maybe like Halloween or even The Thing, to go a route where the antagonist is more obscured throughout the film.
Now, I would like to jump to your educational background.
Okay.
Being a teacher, you have taught classes on global horror. You have taught classes on Dracula.
Yeah.
And there was another one you did. I don't remember the title, but it was just general horror movies. And I remember students coming up to you going, I can't believe this is a class. They were so excited. Do they take your classes thinking that they are easy A's, or they just get to watch films? Or Do you find that you can make them serious students of this genre?
To the Creep Show question, I got her to sign the Creep Show poster too, and she did sign it. I'm assuming we can swear on your show.
Oh yeah.
She signed it with the line, "I'm going to cut your fucking balls off." So,
Nice.
I have that on a Creep Show poster.
That's pretty
yeah. A funnier story to the students taking the class. I taught a cult cinema class. And a student came up to me. Is like, I thought this was going to be a class about movies about cults. I thought
actual cults,
yeah, a little part
Psychology
of me died inside. Yeah, like that it was going to be like Exium or something. No, I mean the Dracula class was a Creepshow 1. The Dracula class was actually for first-year students, and they got to pick this class as them coming to college. And it was whatever the thing was that you had to teach something that you were an expert in, but wasn't like what your doctorate was in. So I was teaching the book Bram Stoker's Dracula, and yeah, it went pretty well because it paired too with Spooky Evenings and stuff. And I was also interviewing Leslie Klinger at the time and some other folks like Dragan Kujundžić and people to talk about vampires. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be an easy A. I don't know. I mean, people take the class. It's weird because people don't watch a lot of younger generation doesn't watch a lot of film that's not almost absolutely contemporary. And by that I mean if it's past like 98, probably they haven't seen it. Right. And so when you show, or let alone a foreign horror film, so when you show them these things, they kind of get into it. It takes about a third of the semester, and then they start seeing, oh, there's a lot more cinema out there.
What surprised me, because I've shown Psycho in some classes before, and a horror movie that we would just, know like the back of our hand, so many of these students hadn't even seen it before. Yep. Like out of a classroom of 100 students, I had maybe like 2 who are all like, yeah, I've seen Psycho, and that's because my parents watched this, one of their favorite films. But getting them introduced to horror through that film was amazing when they realized that it's not a slasher movie, it's not in color, it is kind of slow as far as they're concerned, and there's only 2 murders in the entire film, but of course they all laugh at the very end. So
yeah, the last 15 minutes of Psycho are questionable. I mean, but students haven't seen The Wizard of Oz either.
Yeah, that's true. Listen, I think unless the kids or children or whatever growing up have parents that actually watch these in front of their kids or have the kids sit down and watch it with them, there's really no connection to the old cinema. You know what I mean? So I know my kids, my son and my daughter, especially my daughter, who we sat down a lot and watched a lot of the old Universal horrors and stuff. So she loves them. I mean, she loves all the genre, even the Giallo, which we'll end up talking about here. But I introduced it to her. She sat down, watched it to me. So she's got a love of it and an appreciation of it. But I agree 100%. A lot of these people don't, I think, know what they're missing when it comes to the history of horror, because and I do want to eventually get your take on 2000 and on. Like, what do you think of modern horror, kind of, Matthew? But we'll get to that.
You mean like the new Exorcist trilogy?
Oh no, let's not talk about that.
Gotta be better than the TV show was.
What's that, Matthew?
It's gotta be better than the TV show was.
Oh, I don't know. David Gordon Green. It's going to be a trilogy. I mean, you probably know all about what's going on there with The Exorcist, the new movie, but it just don't. Watch the trailer if you haven't seen it, Matthew. Or watch the video I put out this coming week or something. Go ahead.
Now, I do want to mention The Exorcist really quick, since Matt is not has not been a member of our channel or anything. He doesn't know about your uncle and The Exorcist.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So Dino saw The Exorcist at the movie theater.
Yeah.
And basically his uncle, who's only a year older than him, basically passed out during the film.
Well, not the one that was the same age as me, but an older uncle. He was like maybe 18 or 19 at the time.
There were some great YouTube videos of like sounds of people screaming and running out of the theater during The Exorcist.
Oh, but that's not the deal. The deal is my uncle, he had something when we went to horror movies, because this happened again at the Manitou. I think that's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. Very weird spiritual horror dealing with Native Americans and stuff like that. But he passed out there too. But The Exorcist, we're literally in the drive-in looking at it. She's possessed, all the cuts, everything from the holy water. And okay. I'm scared to death. I'm like 7 years old, somewhere around there. I don't know, 8, whatever. And he gets out of the car and he walks back here and passes out. Everybody's coming out of their vehicles trying to resuscitate him and all this. And this happened twice and just scared. It scared me to death, but it didn't take away anything from my love of horror or even The Exorcist. So yeah, you know. Anyway.
J.O.B. had a question if you want to put it on the screen.
Okay. What are your guilty pleasures when it comes to horror movies, meaning any movie that people dislike but you love?
Halloween 3 probably is the big one usually.
Okay.
My horror blasphemy is that Halloween 3 is better than Halloween 1.
Oh, wait. You're talking about the original, not this whole David Gordon Green Halloween 3.
No, yeah, I'm talking about the Season of the Witch.
I agree with you 100%. I really do.
It's a much better Halloween story, if you will. I don't like Ari Aster films. That's kind of the opposite of the question, but I'm not a big fan of Ari Aster stuff.
Okay. Midsommar, you didn't really care too much for that then, huh?
Did not.
Okay.
For so many reasons.
Okay.
I like the end of Hereditary, but they're not so much.
Yeah, it's hard to
horror opinions.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I mean, everybody. I can get into the schlocky horror like Chud or something as much as I can get into highbrow horror, if you will. I know that John Carpenter kind of hates that term. But,
yeah.
Well,
I'm the same way.
I got one. This is again the opposite answer. I'm not a big fan of the Scream franchise either.
Neither am I. So I think we're on the same page there. Just never did anything for me. I don't know. Yeah,
so I guess I have more dislikes that are popular than I do likes in that regard. But I will say Halloween 3 I think is underrated. But it's getting a renaissance now. People are getting into Halloween 3.
Oh yeah, it's become a cult classic, I think.
We did at movie night this past year, and that's a great film. Becca Too Tall has joined us, and she mentions that she liked Blair Witch 2, and people hated that movie. And I know Matt is, I don't know if you finished your book, Millennial Monstrosity. Okay. But from what I remember, there's going to be a chapter on Blair Witch.
Yeah, it's on the first Blair Witch.
Okay.
I did a talk on the third Blair Witch for the Society for Cinema and Media Studies last year. I think the Blair Witch is Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Okay.
And I can prove it.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, I mean, I'm not even joking with this. The chapter is written like a conspiracy theory. Blair Witch 2 really doesn't have much to do with Blair Witch 1 or 3. It's Book of Shadows. It assumes different things. 3 is kind of like Evil Dead 2. It kind of remakes 1. Um, so the idea here in the chapter, it tracks the political campaign of Hillary Clinton, playing on the term witch and bitch in the media. And also, if you look where the county of Blair is, where Camp David is. And so what I've looked at and what I talked about in the Society for Cinema Studies, I talked about it in relationship to the 2016 presidential campaign, which when that movie came out, Blair Witch 3. Blair Witch 1, I talked about in relationship to her Senate campaign. And basically I talk about the different ideas, expectations, and different approaches of media at the time. Because if you remember Blair Witch 1, first kind of like real viral sensation, first movie that really deployed Reddit effectively. Sci-Fi did like another mockumentary of its own about the Blair Witch. So there was a lot of effort to try to prove that something that was obviously just a movie was real at the time period. And I think a lot of people, have forgotten that campaign when it came out, because what you see is Paranormal Activity had such a successful marketing campaign through colleges that sort of usurped the Blair Witches campaign economically, because Paranormal Activity was infinitely more successful.
Yes. I didn't care for the Paranormal Activity movies at all, but that's me.
I like the first one.
Yeah, well, a lot of the first movies sometimes will be interesting and good because you're seeing it for the first time. Even the Final Destination movies, although people love those too. So it just depends on what your likes are. Blair Witch Project, I mean, it was very interesting when it came out. It was something different, something new, kind of shocked people and said, "Wow, something finally! This is kind of cool." But then, does it hold up over time either? I mean, I don't know.
Parts of it do. I mean, the idea is solid. The acting is all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, Heather got nominated for a Razzie that year, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, most people came out of that thinking they needed a Dramamine, I think, more than anything.
Aye. Oh, yeah. No, it's interesting that you get to dissect movies because of just teaching and stuff like that. But I don't know, Dave, if you don't care, if I go to Giallo just for a few here and
Giallo is all yours.
because I just would well, you know what? No, let's go to House of the Devil, because it's by Ty West and it's in the 2000s. It's 2009. Again, what do you think of the modern horror in general? And then you can kind of go into the House of the Devil if you want, because I think that's just a great film, and Ty West did an awesome job, in my opinion.
And Dino has been so excited to talk to someone about the House of the Devil. It's like one of his favorite satanic movies.
There's so many questions in here. All right. So when you say modern horror, I assume you're talking about post-2000.
Yeah. It's a pretty good chunk of time, I know, but to us old school horror lovers, it's kind of separated that way, 2000 on, and
I'm going to put it at 2001 actually, because I'm going to mark it with 9/11.
Okay.
I think you have to, because what I would point to is 9/11 being the turning point because of the New York Times article that coined the term torture porn.
Yeah.
And talking about Saw, Hostel, and The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I would probably delineate it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because,
sounds about right. Torture porn, when those kind of movies. Listen, we had stuff before Cannibal Holocaust and other types of movies, which is more exploitation and stuff. But like the Saw franchise, I'm interrupting you. I don't care for them at all. That is not my thing. It's just they're like films for serial killers, is what I say.
I mean, they fit in a lineage pretty well. I mean, if you think of the idea of abjection in horror, which is so important, they make a lot of sense in that line. And I mean, you want to talk about Jolly? I mean, they fit in a tradition of watching that kind of abjection.
Yeah.
I point to them as a shift because, much like what I'll talk about in Jolly, I'll talk about Pasolini in relationship to it. They free up what you can and can't expect. So they serve a purpose. Hostile Saul serves a purpose in that it allows for new types of things that would be taboo otherwise, or more taboo, or not be able to be culturally consumed, because now you've watched these horrible, horrible things. And so it becomes less horrible because you've already watched it. So you can't have a Midsummer without Hostel or Saw, because you can't bridge I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Blair Witch to Midsummer without movies like Hostel, because it's worse. And so what you get then is, I mean, the other thing you have to consider too in relationship to them is like CSI and shows like that sort of like granularly get up into violence, which is a different conversation in terms of like how we've mediated and consumed violence over the years. But it is linked to a type of horror. And so what we get then in terms of contemporary horror really is that as the starting line, 9/11, and then the emergence of Blumhouse and A24. A24 kind of late to the game, right? Really, The Witch, 2016 is your starting gate of people really taking any notice of A24. Blumhouse, responsible early on for certain productions of media, but The Conjuring and the Insidious series, sort of what people think about in relationship to Blumhouse, and then now they've eaten franchises like Halloween and things. But if you've watched Spooky Evenings at all, you'd probably know I hate Blumhouse. I think it's horror. I don't think the Warren stories needed to be told.
No.
We already had Amityville. We didn't need rehashing it again.
Although I would say the first Conjuring, I did enjoy that. That really was a good spooky movie. Take the Warrens away from it maybe and just look at it as a spooky movie. I thought it was.
It's not bad. It's just hitting the same, because I mean you again, like going back to Saul, James Wan and him being affiliated with Blumhouse and those series. And you can't divorce the two. Now A24 went the other way. They're like, we're going to make as artsy as you can possibly imagine. And I think the crescendo there is probably The Lighthouse, Eggers' second movie.
Yeah, really good movie.
It is, but people either love it or despise it with a passion. I mean, there's no one who's kind of meh on The Lighthouse. And I mean, it's interesting because he's got Nosferatu, the third version of Nosferatu to come out. We'll see how that goes. But I think, A24, who is responsible for Midsummer and Hereditary, they've gotten a negative rap in the community themselves now. I mean, they're just viewed as sort of like pretentious. And there's no middle ground. You have to go to super indie stuff to find one. Now, if you're looking at things I think are good post 2001, The Dark and the Wicked was pretty recently. That's a fantastic movie. The Void, if you like Lovecraft body horror, that's a fantastic movie. All practical effects. House of the Devil. I got this wonderful lightning.
I know. What the heck?
Great.
It just went right above you.
It did.
Straight down. Okay.
It was like striking my brain for an idea. And Ty West is seeing his own sort of resurgence with X and Pearl. So
I was going to say the past few years, we've been starting to ramp it up with better quality films like X and Pearl and stuff like that. But again, I was going to throw, I would throw Midsommar in there. I love folk horror. So, I
love folk horror too, but I love 70s folk horror.
Well, yeah, me too. Do you have a favorite?
I mean, The Wicker Man, original Wicker Man.
Of course. Blood on Satan's Claw is another good one.
Very good.
Uh,
That would probably be my second choice.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, the other question, you get camp returning to horror too, pretty hard. That's pretty good. If you like campy horror, movies like Slacks, which is about a possessed pair of jeans
Yes.
that do Bollywood dancing.
Did you enjoy those types of films? Like
I did enjoy it.
Okay, because there's like Rubber, there's Attack of the Killer Donuts. Yeah, you name it.
Porno is another good one.
Okay.
The haunted theater that used to be a porn theater, but now is owned by like a evangelical who shows like Disney movies. That's a very funny horror. I mean, because you don't have to go all the way to like Cabin in the Woods and get like super high end with it. You know, you can find these sort of old school Roger Corman-esque movies that are being made today by a lot of great indie people, and I highly recommend them to people. Not the Nick Cage one.
No. It is a shame though that a lot of those the good movies that are by indie directors and they get lost amongst everything that's out there, and you need to know somebody who likes good horror and can recommend them. Otherwise, it's hard to find, right?
Well, I had Anna Biller on Spooky Evenings, and she did The Love Witch. Since you like folk horror, highly recommend Love Witch to everyone. And Anna Biller films in 35 millimeter with big studio lights and does a real hardcore old school. And to me, that's still something. That's an art form that is otherwise being lost. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's a pretty looking film too.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Cinematography and color is just fantastic.
It's probably, it's like North by Northwest level of like saturation in the color. It's amazing. I mean, you'd have to go way back to find movies that well saturated with color and usage. I mean, I'm not that saturated with color, right?
No, not at all.
And so anyway, to House of the Devil, so my take on the House of the Devil, I mean, it's two parts. I think that it's the Dunwich horror in some ways. Talk about Lovecraft.
Okay.
And in other ways, I think it's because it's set in the 80s. So generally, when you get haunted house kind of movies, right, they're about some sort of housing crisis, some economic crisis. So if you think back to Amityville, right, they buy the house cheap and they can't afford to get rid of it, even though it's causing the father to be possessed by the devil. That's usually what haunted house movies are about, economic depression in the house. But in this case, the house is gorgeous. It's an amazing house. Yes. Everybody wants to live in that house. It's this wonderful Queen Anne style home. And I think it's a weird confluence because I think it's about in 2008 when it's released on the convention circuit, right? I think that it's about the student loan crisis that started to come to a head and then the housing crisis at that time. But it's also reflexive of that back in the 80s because the two problems inherent in the film are she needs money, so she does this babysitting job to find out she's babysitting some weird old mother in the attic. Yeah. Very gothic theme there to go with my lightning behind me.
Yep.
And it's also about her needing to pay for rent. So these are two very crucial topics in 2008. How am I going to afford college? How am I going to buy a house? That are being shown in that movie. Now, we were talking about saturation. You got that wonderful 80s gradient VHS quality.
Oh yeah.
In House of the Devil. So I think those are the two theoretical lenses: student loans and housing crisis. In terms of the plot, I do think it's Lovecraft's Dunwich horror, in that you have people through like a spell trying to summon some sort of otherworldly creation. And I mean, of course, it's taking place during a lunar eclipse, which is very perfect for a Lovecraftian theme. And so I think you have a good confluence of the two. I mean, I think Ty West is sharper on the depth of his horror than he gets credit for. Guillermo del Toro always gets all the credit anymore. But I think Ty West is probably just as on it.
Okay. I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro. So, anyways, Dave, take it away, man. You got something else?
Well, I was just thinking in terms of, all the campy horror that we have seen on this channel that we absolutely love. The Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We were talking about that before we went live. What a fantastic film that was. I
have the gun somewhere. I don't know where it is.
I couldn't help but think of The Night of the Comet.
Oh, yeah.
Huge cult classic. Chopping Mall, another one that, we just start watching. We just fall in love with these films.
They lied to the cast of Chopping Mall and wouldn't tell them the name of the movie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because people, when they found out, they're like halfway through shooting and they started calling agents and being like, I'm in a movie called Chopping Mall.
Oh my gosh.
I think you could remake Chopping Mall. The fictitious part of Chopping Mall now would be the mall.
Very true.
True. Yeah. But I love those kind of movies. I mean, again, I love so many different types of genres, and I almost put my favorites in different decades. You know what I mean? Because the 80s just had so many great cheesy horror movies just like that, like Chopping Mall, and you can go on and on, especially with Full Moon and even Trauma Pictures with Toxic Avenger and stuff like that. It's what made the 80s horror comedy, whatever, horror good,
Well, yeah, I mean, you got a couple things. You got the great success, of course, of Halloween in '78,
right?
Which nobody really thought was going to occur. And so then, you get Friday the 13th made as effectively a ripoff. They admit it. I'm not making, I mean, you can look into that. They admit they were just trying to rip off Halloween as hard as they could.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, you get Nightmare on Elm Street. So you get these.
All the big franchises.
Right, that are also making movie studios at the same time. Like New Line and stuff, hanging their financial hat on it. And horror movies are historically cheap to make. And so the return is, it's much better than any other film. It's interesting because, when you go to a bigger budget horror movie, like we're talking about my book, Funhouse. Funhouse has got a troubled history with it, though, because of the director.
Yes. I did enjoy the movie, but yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. DIY Craft Q.
House. I mean, it's not scary. There is a very good jump scare.
Yeah.
Fairly early on, there's a very shocking murder that happens very quickly. But overall, it's not scary, I would say. I don't know if you could do a good Dunwich horror. The problem with Dunwich horror is Lovecraft is very vague about things and leaves it. This is the problem with filming Lovecraft in general.
Yeah.
He'll always say the unnameable thing, the thing beyond speaking, and it's like, all right.
His characters pass out when things get scary.
They do. That'd be great. The camera just
right. Yeah.
But
see, that's actually.
Go ahead.
You've got the same problem filming Lovecraft as you do The Great Gatsby. Daisy Buchanan will never look like what Gatsby sees her as to everyone in an audience. Same thing with filming Lovecraft. What does, as Joshi would say, Cthulhu, what does he look like?
Yeah, I have the same problem with anything they're doing right now with Anne Rice's stuff. Even Tom Cruise with Interview with the Vampire, which was a good movie, but I read the Vampire Chronicles and the Mayfair Witches back when I was a teenager. So I picture everybody in my head a certain way, scenes, everything. And Lestat was just such a strong character that nobody can do him justice.
It was supposed to be Daniel Day-Lewis.
I tell you, I would like to have
Imagine
seen
how
that.
different that would have been.
Yes.
Also,
Anyway,
imagine the method acting for that.
well, if you had Daniel Day-Lewis, I think he's smart enough to know, but who knows
I
who the
don't know what he would
character
have
is,
done.
and maybe take the role. But see, even then, I don't think he'd take it as I saw him. I did see him as this blonde, flowing. Anyways, we won't get into that. But it's same difference, same difference. I'll never be pleased. Anyways,
But that's a good example of a big budget horror movie, though. I mean, in the '90s, you had big budget vampire horror movies. I wrote about Coppola's Dracula.
yeah.
Massive budget, giant cast. And the problem, you think I'll pick on Anthony Hopkins here. Keanu Reeves in that movie is too obvious a target. Anthony Hopkins coming off an Oscar as Dr. Hannibal Lecter, year later playing Dr. Abraham Van Helsing. And it's like a kabuki performance of Van Helsing. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a wizard by the end. It's like Gandalf at the end with like the blue circles going around him and things. It's like, where is this coming from? But it's such a big budget horror film, and it's not the most successful horror film from the '90s by a long shot.
No. So I take it you're not the biggest fan of the Bram Stoker's Dracula?
There's over 700 movie versions of Dracula.
I was just going to bring that into the conversation because, yes, people do put that on a pedestal. I don't know why.
I do because there's no accurate version of it.
Okay, there you go.
There is not one movie of Dracula. There's a BBC made-for-TV version that comes closest. It's on YouTube. You can find it for free.
Is this the one with? Now I can't remember. Louis Jourdan as Dracula?
Might be. It might be. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Yeah, because he was my favorite Dracula. He was a BBC Dracula.
But there's no, and the thing is, everybody's like, I love the story. I love it. Well, then tell the story.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the movie that's disappointed me before it's come out, since we're talking about that, is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Looks awful.
Well, go into that a little bit. I don't.
I was so excited. Now, this is the movie Eggers needed to go and make. This weird Russian-esque thing on a ship that was just moody for 2.5 hours or something. I mean, I hate the way the vampire looks. I hate that, they've broken with, I mean, one of the big things is there's like a woman on the ship, right? And like that would have been so scandalously horrifying to Eastern European sailors at the time period. I mean, and this is my problem with all the Draculas. It's like we don't just tell the story because it's a long, interesting story.
Oh yeah.
The armor.
Right.
Plaid Tepish armor.
Well, listen, I love Gary Oldman too, man. But and I'm not saying Bram Stoker's was a bad movie. It didn't hold up to. I just don't understand all the hype. But anyway,
it's a costume movie. To the previous person's point, it's a costume movie. And I mean, the costume designer / set designer, she did kabuki theater, which is why they're so exaggerated. But Gary Oldman, during the filming of that, he would go to the makeup department and have them make these weird creature outfits for him, unbeknownst to Coppola. They would just like go huddle in a corner, and Gary Oldman would talk them into making new suits for him to wear and stuff.
Nice.
One thing, too, that there was a question a while ago, and this would be a good time to bring it up, what you thought about silent horror. And I know you're a big fan of Nosferatu.
Yeah, I mean, Murnau's hard to beat. All the Weimar horrors are hard to beat.
Yeah.
Do you like the Capital?
Yeah, I mean,
Caligari.
Oh yes. Take that, M. Night Shyamalan, for a twist ending.
Right.
I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, Cesare just falls over. It's like, what happened? Somebody explained to me he had a heart attack. I'm like, he looked so healthy though, a little pale. But
all of that German expressionism that came into a lot of the silent horror just was fantastic.
Yeah, but you have to go foreign for like American stuff from time. I mean, Phantom of the Opera would probably be the exception. But again, huge
Dr. Jekyll,
budget.
Mr. Hyde,
Yeah, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
But huge budget on Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, and we also steal a lot of that German expressionism for and I think they use the sets later on for The Son of Frankenstein with Basil Rathbone. Those scenes are just so beautiful with the sharp corners and the play of light. And of course, I think, was Fritz Lang involved in that as well? I don't remember, but a lot of these German directors came over prior to the war.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is where we're talking about students not having seen The Wizard of Oz, but you don't get The Wicked Witch of the West and The Wizard of Oz in '39 without Nosferatu. She's just a female version of the vampire. I mean, even the gesture is the same.
Yeah.
I mean,
interesting. Okay, yeah. And the water takes her down. The sun takes down the vampire. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, same with you wouldn't have the witch in Snow White either in '37 without Nosferatu.
Well, everything's a progression, right? I mean, if there is no progression, then where are we headed? You know what I mean? So things do got to evolve and change and push the boundaries. The pre-code.
Oh, God. Sure. I'm just pointing to where it weirdly pops up.
Yeah. No, it's interesting looking at all of that way. But go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to me, it actually is reminiscent of, you had mentioned North by Northwest earlier. And to me, some of those camera angles, the UN building is very much that expressionist type of architecture that we see. And also that very unique color in that film as well.
Yep. Well, I mean, people forget that Hitchcock goes way back into silent films, I think. And he very much borrowed. We use the term borrowed, appropriated. He took things from where he could in terms of that learning curve.
My favorite of all time, but go ahead.
That's actually that's my number 2, Rear Window.
What's your number 1?
Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, David Lynch.
Oh, okay. No, I thought I was speaking Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rear Window is my favorite Hitchcock. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No, I was saying my second favorite movie of all time is Rear Window.
Nice. And Mulholland Drive is your first. Okay, good choice. That's nice. I like that.
You can't have Mulholland Drive without Rear Window. It is, in essence, a partial remake of Rear Window. That would take way too long to explain. Wild at Heart is a remake of The Wizard of Oz. So
I kind of see that.
Stick all over.
Yeah. Okay.
Nick Cage came up earlier too. It's all full circle.
Yeah. No, we were talking North by Northwest. Right?
Yeah.
There.
So
get us on track, Dave. What were we talking about?
I was just trying to lead us to Rear Window. What a fantastic film that is.
Okay.
Yes, Rear Window.
Yeah.
Grace Kelly.
Which I think Grace Kelly is probably among the most beautiful women to have ever lived in this world. She should have been from the 1930s when we have all those beautiful pre-code women in film. What takes me out of Rear Window is her and Jimmy Stewart as a couple. I can't buy it. I'm not gonna buy it. It pisses me off to this day. Whoever was casting did a horrible job.
Well, I mean, probably Alma Hitchcock.
Well, that's the way things were, right? In the 40s, 50s, 60s, even the elder gentleman would be with this, younger, beautiful woman, and that was just the way things were in Hollywood, at least. Am I wrong?
Well, all of the Hitchcock men, the main character men, particularly ones Jimmy Stewart plays, are Hitchcock. And I mean, Hitchcock basically lived in that apartment, which had running water and electricity and everything.
Yeah.
And like they had to send messages up to him and things because he wouldn't leave because he was becoming the character. He always did. Like Vertigo is about Hitchcock, and all these films are about his own obsessions and basically his fixation on blondes. And that's why you have like Ingrid Bergman and Grace Kelly and Janet Leigh,
Eva Marie Saint.
Yeah, and that's why you see them in these films. But all the men and the way they behave toward these women are the ways Hitchcock wanted to behave toward.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of stories about the way he was and his life on set and behind the scenes and stuff like that.
Well, Rear Window is a movie about voyeur. I mean, Rear Window and Psycho are both about voyeurism. Rear Window more apparently, but I mean, you do have the scene where he gets very close up with his eye, watching her in the shower in Psycho. And if you've ever seen the Anthony Hopkins version playing Hitchcock, they have a great biographical moment where the hole is very large on the one side, very small the other, and Janet Leigh asks him why. He says, so I can look at you from all angles. And, that's just another one of these displacements of Hitchcock's own sort of like scopophilia is the fancy word, I believe. The love of looking.
I do have to get to, we're getting to the top of the hour, and I do want to dive into Giallo. I want to listen.
Hitchcock is a good transition into Giallo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of, a couple of my favorite of all time ended up being Brian De Palma with Dressed to Kill, and even Blowout is somewhat a Giallo film, and one that's very, very underrated. But anyways, introduced to this not that long ago. I didn't even know Giallo existed a few years ago. That's how crazy that is. I was so much into the older films and never hit the Italian horror or foreign horror. And when I found out about Giallo, I just went crazy. And I think I've watched about 45 films now, somewhere around there. So, and listen, I've said this over and over and over. It doesn't take away from my love from Giallo films, but 80% is they're about a 5 out of 10. I always say, they're passable. They're good to watch if you're in a Giallo kind of mood, but the other 20%, they're really, really good films, especially the Dario Argento, of course. But I'd love your take on Giallo and what like your favorite films are, what you take from the genre.
Well, I mean, I guess first we should probably define it.
Yes.
Giallo films are detective stories, effectively. There's nothing supernatural. This is why Suspiria isn't a Giallo film,
right?
Which everybody always wants to run to Suspiria, because it's got the color scheme.
Yeah.
But
I lump it in there sometimes, but I know it's technically not a full-on Giallo film. So, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, definitionally, a Giallo film is a mystery that needs to be solved, which Suspiria does have that element, and it's a human antagonist. There's nothing supernatural in a Giallo. They come from a series of books that were published. I think it's Montadori Press, and the book binding is it was yellow. Giallo means yellow. And I mean, this was everybody. Like Agatha Christie was in this series of books. So, I mean, any type of mystery. I know Dave's a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. In theory, you could do a Sherlock Holmes Giallo. It's possible.
Wow.
So then the evolution goes from these books where they're taking the plots from, and then in Germany, which I think we're finding is the origins of most things. We had the creamy films.
Yes, yes.
And you had some sort of noir, violent films in America too. It's Olivia de Havilland is in it. I can't remember the name of the movie. But these are like the predecessors. So what you get is basically during World War II, we get the export of American films being a big thing. Just the same in World War I with British films, Charlie Chaplin. And so we get all that coming into Italy, and you get different rebellions. So the time period is going to hit right at the end of what we call New Wave cinema. So this is when you want to think of your artsy Italian cinema. So you have Fellini and Bergman.
Yeah.
So movies like Persona and stuff. And so now people want to make a different kind of movie. And so they want to make violent movies. They want to respond to the cultural violence that happened in Italy during the fascism. And they want to address sort of the horror of violence to the body. And they do it through these detective stories. And they take inspiration from all over the place. And then, what becomes intrinsic with it is it's in color. And so that's when you get the really dramatic lighting as well. So we think of the red and blue lighting, sometimes green as well.
Yeah.
And then there's other elements we constantly think of, like the another movie that Dave quite likes is Clue. The Black Gloves comes from Giallo. And say what?
We actually did a walkthrough, a watch along.
Okay.
Just after Christmas last year of Clue.
Yeah, yeah.
I think part of that comes too from Dr. Strangelove. The story there is Peter Sellers thought that Stanley Kubrick looked so sinister in his black gloves that he used to handle the lights. So I think that part of that is from there too. But anyway, and usually it's a male killer. The big spoiler, 50 years spoiler. The big twist one is the bird with crystal plumage.
Yeah.
With it being a girl, which I think the title kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
But this is where you get all your big name mid-century Italian directors who aren't Fellini.
Right. Yeah, you got Mario Bava, you got Sergio Martino, Dario Argento, list goes on and on. It's yeah. And
so, I mean, the other person they're heavily dependent upon is the other guy who's not Fellini, which is Pier Paolo Pasolini. And America had the Hays Code after we were talking about pre-code movies. You had the Hays Code. Yeah. Psycho was actually instrumental in lessening the Hays Code. First movie with a toilet flushing, Psycho. And Pasolini did this with sexuality in Italian film because, of course, they were butting up against the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And so Pasolini, I mean, if we leave Sallow over to one side for a moment, had a lot of nudity on screen.
Yes.
And so it suddenly became okay to do that in film because Pasolini did it. They just added gruesome murder on top of the nudity. Right. But what happened a lot in the distribution of Jolly, I keep saying Jolly because it's the plural of Giallo.
Right. Yeah.
Is they had to take them to individual cities in Italy. Like maybe you could show the movie in Florence, but not in Rome or Milan, because they would get banned city by city. Which either. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I mean, my favorite's probably What Have You Done, Solange?
Oh yeah. What Have You Done to Solange? Yeah.
Based on the Genet play The Maids, which I like that play as well. But that's probably my favorite, not quite as mainstream one.
There's quite a few. Blood and Black Lace is another great one. One of the first,
Yeah, that's considered the first true one.
yeah. Mario Bava, beautiful color, very early on, 60s. I forget the exact year, but yeah, that was a beautiful. Oh, look at the lightning! Listen to the thunder.
My place is actually shaking and car alarms are going off.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not disappearing, so
You picked the night to have me.
Oh man. Well, what do you think of the Dario Argento films? A fan? I mean, you've got to be.
I love Argento. I think we mentioned opera before we came on air. That was the first Giallo I saw. When I was in college at William and Mary, we'd go to either Norfolk, which is 45 minutes south, or Richmond, which is 45 minutes north. Yeah, because they had these indie art house movie rental places. Yes, before nowadays we had to actually go get the physical media, which I mean, there's a lot to be said to having physical media, and particularly if you like Giallo, it's hard to find them streaming.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But we go Strawberry Street Video, and what a great alliteration, Strawberry Street. Strawberry. But we would go there, and I went into the foreign horror section, and that's where I found opera. And opera, I mean, it's the loosest Phantom of the Opera ever. I mean, the Robert Englund one's pretty loose, but this is
really loose. Yeah,
it throws the premise out the door. It goes. I mean, the other thing you have to understand too with a lot of these Giallo is the amount of sort of like dependence on psychoanalysis, which I know a lot of horror has, but opera super has, because he really wants to sleep with his mom.
Yeah. There's deep meaning in that the film, the script. Yeah,
and so another,
but
movie
very well done. I mean,
excellent movie.
Oh yeah, I think the kills. And especially opera, I mean, but most of Dario Argento's great years, during that 80s stretch, the kills when it comes to horror, he just takes them in so many different ways, and he's creative, and the way he does things is just, I mean, I just love it.
Well, it's interesting. Opera is a rare horror too, where you're compelled to watch, or the victim is compelled to watch, and you are the victim. With you, you get that shot with like the things prying over your eyes, which I mean, honestly, that's one of my biggest fears in the world: things getting near my eyes.
Yeah.
And so that always and we say similar scene in Clockwork Orange. The idea of things like approaching the eye like that, and or being forced to intake this, and the reflection of that being you as the viewer, also having to watch something like that. And I mean, if you think to that transitioning towards the US, like, that's the opening 7 minutes of Halloween. You're in the mask watching.
Yep.
And so
you get a lot of point of view. Go ahead, Dave.
Just a real quick side note in terms of the different murders that take place during a Giallo film. Dino had a partner for many years, Ted, and him would do movie reviews on this channel. And Ted's favorite scene was this guy being dragged behind a truck for miles and miles and miles. And you didn't think he could be killed in any other way. And then
it's so ridiculous.
At the very end, he survives only to get his head run over by like another car.
It's
get the film. Oh darn it! I just had it, but it's not there anymore.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's. Yeah. Now I don't know which one that one is either. But anyways, the scene was fantastic, and ending up dying at the end like that. But it's a standout.
Deep Red, I think.
Deep Red. Yes.
Oh, Deep Red. Yeah.
How can I forget? Because technically, Deep Red, I think, is my favorite Giallo film at the moment. Deep Red.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you got one. If you do, let me know, Matthew.
Yeah, like I said, what have you done this launch? I think is
Okay,
mine.
that is your favorite. Okay.
So, but I mean that's the thing. The violence is so hyperbolic
Mhm.
in Giallo, and I mean it kind of has to be. It's sort of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and things I love about Giallo too is things that people kind of get put off sometimes. I love the bad dubbing. I think it adds to the film. You know what I mean?
but there's bad dumbing in 8.5 too.
Well, there you go. That's true too.
It's just that's an Italian. That's
Yeah.
mid-century Italian film.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just everything about it I fell in love with. I mean, there's also the time period. I mean, a lot of those early 70s up to the 80s is a different kind of Giallo than you get with Dario Argento, of course. And there's something I just love about all of those movies. And I'm coming to find out that there's this huge genre of exploitation films similar to that, because they kind of started to go into this kind of weird exploitation type of film, but which I'm just now getting into.
Well, so what happened was the films became distributed in all the 24-hour theaters in New York, and then you get grindhouse cinema, as the American response to it.
Yeah. No,
and then the Italians get bored and like, no, we need demons and witches and things.
Demons. Speaking of, that was a movie. I didn't hate it, but it was a pretty good movie. We're getting into like Lucio Fulci and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you like that too?
I do.
Okay.
I love Fulci.
Yeah, it's a different type of filmmaking. It's a different feel. But again, not a lot of people can sit through the 70s Giallo with the dubbing and the slow pace that a lot of those films have. But I love it. So
I mean, we mentioned briefly Cannibal Holocaust, right? That's in the 70s in Italy too. I mean, and I mentioned Salo, same thing. Pasolini was murdered for making Salo.
Oh God! Well, it was a bit disturbing, that film, but I sat through the entire thing though. I mean, it was interesting. That's all I'll say.
So I mean, but you got the way you look at that. I mean, in America, we look at horror being what is the current zeitgeist of what we as Americans are afraid of in any given moment, and that's what the horror movies are. So you got Frankenstein on your desk. 1930s, we're afraid of whatever's going on in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And that's why they're all set there.
Yeah.
In Italy, and Germany, we were talking about the silent films. You've got in Germany and Weimar cinema, there's the fear of what's coming in between World War I and World War II. And then what's so genius about, and this is why I don't know what Eggers is going to do with Nosferatu, the vampire Count Orlok in Murnau's version is a fear of fascism approaching. When Herzog does it, it's a warning about what happened with fascism. That's why it's got a villain winning at the end, because he goes and rides off somewhere to spread the message of this type of fascism. That's why I don't like what is Eggers is going to be about in relationship to it. I don't know, because he also doesn't have like the cultural tie. Herzog and Murnau both were German, or Herzog's still alive.
Yeah.
In Italy, it's what do we do with this cultural guilt of fascism? You can go one way. You can be Fellini and be like, I'm going to look at my childhood and how weird it was and make it more dreamlike. Or, to some degree, what you do is you go this hyper-violent route that existed in Italy during the war with like the brown shirts and things, and you deal with it that way. I mean, there's a lot of art that's produced this way in Austria, the Viennese Actionists, for instance, that respond to the cultural conditions of 20 years prior and how they still feel about it and the cultural guilt they have. And I think that's why you see this exploitative violence in Jolly. as almost like a purging of it from the cultural conscience.
Interesting. Yeah, no, definite. You got something, Dave? Looking at
No,
the
I'm
chat.
just like, I can see why Matt is such a sought after professor. It's just I can sit here and just like, just tell me more.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, you should see the list. I've been writing down all these movie titles that I'm like gonna have to spend the next week or two before I go back.
Let me throw another one in there that's an
All
American movie that people don't know about that everyone should know about. Fade to Black.
Oh yes. I love that film.
That is the sleeper film that horror fans tend not to know about.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. I did a full movie review on the channel that talked about it for like an hour and a half, I think, something like that.
It's a great movie.
Yes, so yeah, and it's kind of a throwback to Hollywood, kind of with his character and all that. You even get, I think James Cagney's up on the wall and stuff like that. But anyways, it's very, very cool. And then he's got a thing with his mother too, I think. Or is
that's why I was thinking about it.
Okay, yeah.
Well, because she poses as his aunt, she refuses to acknowledge she's his mother.
Yeah,
and like makes him massage her and things.
It is a good film though. It's one people should, if you love horror, you go watch that movie.
Yeah, it is a love letter to old horror and old film in general.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, I talked to Matt the other night as we were preparing for this show, and he turned me on to a Vincent Price film that I did not know, and I found on YouTube, and I have to admit, I started watching it. I love it. The Baron of Arizona.
The Baron of Arizona.
Yep.
Okay. What is that about? A quick synopsis there, Dave.
It's a true story.
Okay.
It's a guy who poses as nobility from Spain, and that he owns the deed to Arizona territory, and the U.S. government owes him all this money.
No, nice. Hey, listen, anything with Vincent Price, I'm a big fan, but that is one I haven't seen either, Dave.
It's a Western.
Yeah,
Western.
It is
Okay.
Vincent Price in a Western.
Okay. That's fine. Anything Vincent Price, I'm going to watch it. So Ian Sharp's cult movie. So there you go. Yeah.
That's a deep cut. You want a deep cut? That's a deep cut. If you want a really deep cut, weird movie, Mr. Freedom.
Mr. Freedom.
If you make it through it, I'll congratulate you.
Go ahead.
It's about a superhero named Mr. Freedom.
Okay.
And he's got to go fight all kinds of weird xenophobic stereotypes out in the world.
Where could it be found at? Is it anywhere to view? Not sure.
I have physical media.
Physical media. Okay,
yeah.
So
you might find it on YouTube. It's definitely a weird one. Another sci-fi horror one is The X from Outer Space. If you like bad dubbing,
The X from Outer Space.
Yeah, if you like bad dubbing, that's a good one. I think that one is on YouTube.
Okay. What year?
Oh, that was
decade.
Either late 50s or early 60s.
Okay, perfect. That's
Yeah.
unlike Dave. Yeah, that's my era.
Dino loves this Vampires from Mars or something like that that we're watching, and it's
the Mario Bava, Planet of the Vampires.
Oh man,
Matthew, come on. Good movie? No? Yes?
I'll tell you a better one for
love it.
The holidays. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Seen it.
Yeah.
It's one step above the Three Stooges movie.
That thing is fantastic. I watch it every Christmas. But
Planet of the Vampires, I fell in love with that movie. He's got the colors of a Giallo, it's Mario Bava. But Dave, he's just like, what the heck are you? What is this? But I loved it. I love cheesy sci-fi as well as the horror. So my go-to is cheesy. Like I love when the the scientist has to explain everything in a scientific, manner, and
So you like the Tingler and stuff, I bet.
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, God, Dave, you want to say something? I think.
No, I love the Tingler. That's awesome.
Yeah, okay.
I went to a showing of the Tingler in Atlanta, and they had the buzzers hooked up.
Oh, to the chairs?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh.
It was great. The Percepto buzzers.
Yes. And what movie was that in? Horror movie. Speaking of, that had the smell effects. What, that wasn't Fade to Black, was it? What
No,
movie?
the Odorama movie. It's a John Waters movie. I can't remember.
But they had the smell-o-vision. They had all kinds of different. Oh, the electricity. I think it was a Giallo film.
Yeah, I mean William Castle loved the gimmicks.
Right. Yeah.
I mean he would arrive in a hearse in a coffin to the premiere.
Oh God, that's fantastic.
He axed Joan Crawford to death, using a scrim at several movie premieres.
Mickey Rourke had a small part in Fade to Black. Yes, I do believe it was his first film that he was in, Mickey Rourke. It was a small part, but it was kind of the bully to the main character there. But yeah. Pink Flamingos. Oh boy. Yeah. Talking about movies. Listen, John Waters, I'm a big fan. Pink Flamingos is an excellent movie in my eyes. I love it. He has other ones too that are just as good. The Egg Lady. Come on. Sitting in a crib throughout the whole movie. It's so bizarre and so out there that you just have to see it. Or not. You could turn it off 10 minutes in and go, this isn't for me. But I loved it. Anyways.
We haven't, with the thunder in the background, we haven't talked a whole lot about Hammer horror movies. Are you a fan of Peter Cushing or?
Oh yeah, I've got Christopher Lee's autograph in my horror room.
Oh.
Nice.
I like the TV shows too, the Hammer horror TV shows.
Hammer horror has a feel to their films. I mean, so.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some of theirs are better than, the original Universal takes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I equate. This is nothing in no way demeaning Hammer films, but I equate the Hammer films through those, through the 70s, I'll say, whatever. The slow pace, the just the look and the feel, to some of the Giallo films of the 70s, where if you're just not a fan of slow paced kind of filming, and I don't know, there was something about the Hammer. A lot of the Hammer horror films, except for the big ones, the big name ones, 5 out of 10 for me, man. Me and my friend have battled over this over many years because I'm a Universal guy, but doesn't mean I don't appreciate Hammer horror films, and there are some very good ones. But some of them I've watched, I've gone, oh my God, when is this going to be over?
Yeah, I mean, you get deep in the weeds with the Universal ones. It's the same. It just goes out the window. Yeah. I mean, I like the original Mummy, right, with Boris Karloff. I'm a big fan of. The idea of the Mummy, I think, is one of my favorite horror antagonists. Yeah. But I really like the Hammer horror versions of the Mummy.
Would you call yourself a Hammer horror guy over a Universal guy, or?
No, I mean, okay. I can have 2 slices of cake.
Oh yeah, no, of course you can.
No, but we got to be careful too with Matt, because he is a Jeremy Brett over Basil Rathbone.
That is true.
How can we really, trust him?
That's true.
How can we believe anything he has to say? The show is over, you guys, and we are moving on. No, I'm just joking.
But I will tell you, Matt will side with me that Frasier is a better sitcom than Seinfeld.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
actually, if you go back and rewatch Frasier and Seinfeld, it's very weird, because I was rewatching Frasier for different things in the Millennial Monstrosities book. Seinfeld was supposed to be a show about nothing, right? That was famously what it was, right? A show about nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does it feel so dated if you go back and rewatch it from 2023? The only thing that feels dated in Frasier is like the clothing and the cell phones.
Oh boy, I'm just a little shocked. I don't know. I don't see Seinfeld be. It doesn't feel dated to me, but
I don't know. I feel like Frasier is held up better.
Listen, it could just be because I am such a Seinfeld fan that there's no way you're going to throw anything negative my way. It's just going to bounce off like I'm Superman.
No, I mean it's not negative. It's just
I
it's
understand.
weird that it feels like watching the 90s. You know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get that. I mean, yeah, I mean,
you're hard pressed to find a bigger Seinfeld fan than Dino.
I'm definitely not here to debate.
No. It's all good. Listen, I understand that everybody's got their own, loves and what they like in certain, whether it's sitcoms, movies, or whatever. I did tell Dave I am going to go back and rewatch Frasier. I don't think I've given Frasier actually a chance. I think I watched some of the seasons back in the day when it originally came out. So I think I need to rewatch Frasier.
Yeah. There are some amazing the farce episodes are the best ones.
Nice.
And there's one like in a ski lodge where they're all chasing each other, trying to sleep with each other. And it's just hilarious. I mean, it holds up with like an old school, like almost like a Marilyn Monroe sex comedy kind of
nice
situation.
I'll leave that up just a little bit longer. Seinfeld made him laugh more. I'm just joking.
And it was so funny too, because Matt and I have talked about Frasier and Seinfeld. Because early on, I was, of course, a big Seinfeld fan, and it made me mad that Frasier won all the awards. And when I started watching Frasier, what a fantastic series that was. And Matt had brought to my attention that normally on that historic dip that you have around season 4, 5, 6, that's when Frasier really was excelling as far as the quality of that TV show. So...
Well, I remember at that point it started beating Seinfeld in ratings at times. So, there could be something to that, Dave. Yeah. No, listen, I am giving it a chance. I'm going to watch it. And you know what? Probably after I watch it, I'm going to go, I cannot believe that it's took me all these years to take and watch Frasier. So,
there are some episodes of Frasier I can't stand. Don't get me wrong. But,
true. I mean, that's true with any series. Yeah. But it also took you 6 years to watch Kolchak as well.
That's true.
So,
yes.
My buddy Kendall Phillips at Syracuse University, he has a book out right now on Kolchak.
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've watched the. Oh, thank you, Becca Too Tall.
Yeah, Dave, the Paranormal Gardener.
The Paranormal Gardener. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sears James, for that moniker now as well. And now I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Kolchak and Kendall Phillips.
Kendall Phillips. Yeah, you had a podcast with him that I listened to. That was fantastic. I really appreciated that.
Oh, Kendall's a real interesting guy. He's into the older horror. I mean, he was sort of like everybody's dad in terms of getting people. His book's called Projected Fears. That was one of the instrumental books in horror studies. The first one, of course, is Men, Women, and Chainsaws. What a great title.
Nice.
That now, good. She doesn't talk about it. She just, she was like a Slavic studies professor at Berkeley. And then, of course, David Skyle produced a lot of stuff. David's pulling something up for us here.
I found the paperback of The Night Stalker. It cost me $20, but it is fresh. It is beautiful, and I'm so pleased.
That's nice, Dave.
That I found it.
That's awesome.
Now, are you into the movie more or the TV series?
I am into the movie. We have done movie night with it. We have done trivia with it. We've started a little bit on the series. I have not watched the series the entire way through. I have seen, if probably the first half, but the films is where it's at. I mean, literally, the next time I go to Las Vegas, I'm going to the corner of 9th and Bridger for a selfie. That's how much I'm into it.
Yeah, yeah. I think going into the TV series or the TV shows, it gets a little bit more typical of the TV shows of the era, right?
Oh yeah,
a little bit more, how can I put it? They're not as well done, but and they reuse and stuff like that, but they're still good. They're still good.
Now, do you all know Friday the 13th, the series, the TV show?
I only saw a little bit of it years ago when it came out.
Okay.
Same
Sci-Fi
here.
used to rerun it all the time, like that and Dark Shadows.
Oh, no, Dark Shadows.
Dark. We didn't even talk about Dark Shadows. Matt is a gigantic Dark Shadows fan, and in fact, I want to say you have watched every single episode in order
3 times.
Oh. Well, I have once, and I started working on it again. But that's awesome. 3 times. Yeah.
I mean, the latter plot, of course, is Wuthering Heights, which is fitting for the storm behind me.
Right.
Man, yeah, Dark Shadows like just plows through the canon of horror. You get, I mean, there's something, and sometimes you want to talk about episodes dragging. You get into a pocket of Dark Shadows where you just want somebody to die so bad. It's like when you're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're just waiting for Franklin to die.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh.
But you could,
it does.
You could at least stare at Angelique, and everything would be fine.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an odd You know how like it became popular, right?
Well, go ahead real quick. You can let everybody know.
So they were going to cancel it. It was this gothic soap opera, supposed to be about Victoria Winters. So if you watch the first year, it's all about Victoria Winters. You get one weird ghost moment. Josette walks out of her portrait as a ghost. That effect actually won an Emmy. And basically, nobody was watching it, right? And Dan Curtis was just like, all right, you're going to cancel me. I'm going to put a vampire in here. And it just took off. Like Jonathan Frid was supposed to be on the show, I think, for 30 episodes, and that was it. And, he wasn't, he was just, he expected to have this Shakespearean actor career. He was a Yale graduate. He did a lot. I mean, he was in a play with Katharine Hepburn. He was in The Lion in Winter with Katharine Hepburn, and he definitely didn't expect it. And then the character became popular, and so he had to become the protagonist. He had to switch from being this antagonistic character to being the protagonist, and then to keep it fresh, they just, I mean, you time warped several times. You even went to an alternate reality at one point, and you went to the future.
Yeah. Well, they had to, because it was a horror soap opera, and they had to constantly keep changing. So they would throw in anything they could to keep the ratings up and keep people interested in viewing. And sometimes it was outlandish, and sometimes it was ridiculous, but I think it worked, and he will forever be known as Barnabas Collins now, so we got that.
The best moment in that show, in my opinion, is they're back in the 18th century, and the Reverend Trask is exorcising the place. And they only did one take. Dark Shadows did not stop, because there's a point when the entire set collapses behind people, and it's in the show. So you get like cue card guys and everything. I mean, the nickname of Dark Shadows was Mike Shadows, because the boom would come in. So.
Always in the shot, yeah.
But Reverend Trask, and God bless the actor, he's doing this big biblical exorcism, right? And a fly is just and he's just in it. He's not leaving it, and it adds so much because it's like, God, you know how much CGI you'd have to do today to get that
right, to get that off. Yeah.
And,
Listen,
I mean,
it is. I'm sorry. It is the bottom of the hour, man, and I got to get ready for the overnight stream. But I want everybody to know to definitely check out the description below and go to Matthew's website where you can check out the podcast, YouTube channel, all his socials and everything. A lot of good interviews on the shows. So, I mean, you talk to a lot of people in horror. So, people need to hear it. So, good stuff there. Good stuff.
Well, thank you all for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Matt.
Pleasure.
Okay, so everybody take care. Thank you guys for coming out. Again, please check out his link in the description. And as always, thank you, Dave, for being here with me. And Matthew, thank you very much for showing up and talking horror. This was awesome.
Anytime.
Okay, with that said, any last